Welcome to 2021, everyone. It's fair to say 2020 was an incredibly challenging year for us as the world responded to the global pandemic. And one of the ways that affected all of our lives has been our productivity. I think upon reflection, it's okay that all of us were less productive. This is a once in a century event, and so we shouldn't dwell on it too much. But I think today I want to talk about one lesson I've taken away from 2020 that I'm going to use to my advantage in 2021, and that is the power of habit. Now, I use that term intentionally because it's one of my favorite books of the same name by Charles Duhigg, in which he talks about how powerful habits are in terms of growing as individuals, incrementally progressing 1% better every day. Because if I ask you the following question, amidst a society and your lives changing on a daily basis, responding to this pandemic, what remained constant? And I'd hazard to guess that you had certain things that you did day in, day out. Not long after you woke up, you went and showered. Shortly after that, you maybe grabbed your morning coffee. Perhaps it wasn't at the Starbucks because of lockdown rules, but you got it in home instead. You had lunch at 1 p.m. because that's when you have it. You had dinner at 8 because that's when you have it. And these habits can be for good and for bad. But if we use this knowledge, we can use them to affect real change and growth as an individual and stick with it regardless of the challenging times, such as pandemics or various external events that you can't control. And so that's why today I wanted to focus on learnings about habits from 2020 that I've experienced and how we can make your habits more obvious so that you hopefully have more success in working at them. Okay, so before I continue the rest of this video, I need to cover the laws of behavior change. Now, this is a concept proposed by James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. It's quite a famous book and it's a really good read. I recommend it. So let's take a quick moment to summarize what those laws are. Basically, it's to do with how you make habits successful. And if you stick to these 4 laws, it means you're going to have a greater likelihood of succeeding in keeping these habits. So the first law is make it obvious. Now, let's think in the context of you want to do a morning run every day. To make it obvious, you might lay out your running clothes at the end of your bed. So when you wake up, you see your running clothes, and you're like, oh, I need to go and do my morning run. The second law is about making it attractive. So this is like, it's appealing to be a runner and do it in the morning. So maybe you're someone who likes competition, you're a competitive person. And so what you might do is join a running group on an online app where there's maybe a leaderboard and you're motivated by the fact that, oh, your friend has done 5 kilometers, so you might want to do 6. And that is one way of making it attractive, right? Now, the third law is making it easy. So if you told me I'm starting a running habit for 2021, I've never run before, and my target is to run an hour every morning, I'd say that has a low likelihood of success because that is not easy. That's quite hard if you're a new runner. And so the way to flip that is say, just convince yourself to say, I'm going to run for 5 minutes every single day. And perhaps after a month, you could review that and increase it to 10 or whatever. But the point here is to make it easy so that your brain isn't seeing that hour-long run and just being put off by it. You're not going to be put off by 5 minutes. You can do it. That's really easy, right? And the fourth is to make it satisfying. So quite often, people use the concept of like temptation bundling or giving yourself rewards. So perhaps when you're spinning on your bike, you will watch some Netflix. So you pair a nice activity with the exercise. And in the context of this morning run, afterwards you can treat yourself to your morning coffee or a biscuit or whatever you think is a nice reward. Okay, so that's the 4 laws of Atomic Habits. Hopefully I haven't butchered it. I really encourage you to read the book, but let's get back to the rest of this video. So in a video posted earlier this year, in fact, one of my very first videos of 2020, I spoke about how I was using an app called Habit to track my performance against habits that I wanted to achieve. And the app was good, but to be brutally honest with you, I wasn't very successful. And upon reflection, and rethinking about James Clear's 4 laws of behavior change, I realized that one of the big factors was that I broke the first law of making it obvious. If you think about it, with that app, I had to be able to kind of think about the habits that I'm wanting to achieve, I have to open my phone, unlock it, go into a specific app, then see the information. Now, I realize that sounds really, really simple, but the fact that you have to kind of navigate out of your way to open your phone, to click on an app, the likelihood is it's quite avoidable and it's not obvious. And so it's quite easy to forget about your good intentions. And so what I want to just discuss now is 2 tactics that I'm focusing on to make it more obvious and keep up my consistent focus on the habits. Now, the first is to use paper as a physical reminder. Now, a brief aside is, for those that you don't know, there's a subreddit on Reddit called the X effect. Now, all this is, in essence, is you print off a grid of squares on a piece of paper representing each day of the week for a certain period of time, and you write at the top of it the habit that you want to achieve, whether it's flossing, exercising, reading, whatever. And simple as every day you need to cross off each box in the grid. It is actually extremely powerful, and I've used it many times in the past, but recently I obviously fell under the law of having everything digital, not having paper clutter. I think the reason this breaks down and why paper is potentially quite powerful is that it is a physical reminder that is obvious and kind of unavoidable. Because if you think about it, if I've got a piece of paper with all my habits written on them and that grid of squares staring me at the face when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed, whenever I pass by this piece of paper, it's reminding me that is what I want to achieve and work on. And so that is my focus for 2021, which is returning to paper and using it as a physical reminder. The second way we can work at making our habits more obvious is sticking with the digital route, but using widgets to good effect. Now, iOS users will be cheering because late in 2020, widgets were added to the iOS update. I believe Android has had it for many years, so Apple's only just catching up, but at least now both platforms have widgets, which are essentially useful bits of information related to an app displayed visually nicely. Now, the reason this is important is, just like the paper that sits beside my bed that I see every single day, the same can be done on your phone. And if you think about it, you can actually track this on iOS, and I imagine Android, how many times you pick up and open your phone a day. For me, it's probably 50, 60 times a day, which, okay, is absurd, but that many times, if I have a widget showing my habits, whether I've done them or not, I'm seeing that 60 times a day. That's unavoidable and super, super obvious. And I think will hopefully make a massive difference to my consistency and my focus on my habits. Now, finally, I will just cover 2 recommendations for apps I think that have good widgets for this, but I think definitely feel free to try out loads of different apps because they can all be very suited to different personal preferences. So check them out at your leisure. For iOS, the one I'm trialing at the moment is called Streaks. It did cost, I think, £4 or £5, but the thing that I love, I'll put an image on the screen now, is I have a widget that takes up 2/3 of my screen displaying the 4 habits I'm focusing on, and it's really big and bold and it's really colorful when you've completed them. And so it's an extra bit of like reward or motivation for me to kind of tick that off, so I have a nice looking home screen. For Android users, admit I don't have an Android device, but one app I've seen recommended quite often is the Loop Habit Tracker that has similar looking widgets and some pretty good looking functionality. So maybe give that one a try and let me know how you find it. But all in all, it comes back to the fact that don't dwell on whether you had a less than productive 2020. Use it as a reflection to learn from it, build in 2021 stronger, more successful habits. And one last thing before you go, if you did get some value out of it, please consider liking this video and subscribing if you want to stick around for more content on this topic. I'm really keen to make a lot more in 2021, so please stick around and I'll see you in the next one.